This is Cassie and Lauren here. We are coming to you right before the start of Advent. So it's finally December, 25 days till Christmas. I don't know if any of you guys buy those calendars with a piece of chocolate in every day for your kids, maybe for yourself. But my kids definitely have been looking forward to starting theirs so much that they had their chocolate before breakfast. So we didn't even wait till after dinner.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh, I gave Ben chocolate for breakfast too.
Yeah, there was like chocolate for breakfast, half a cookie, and then they had cereal. So we didn't get off to the best start today, but tried.
Or you did get off, or you got off to the absolute best start that you could.
I like that. I like that. I am going to try to make Advent a little bit sacrificial for myself, but whatever food I can get from my kids' mouths into their bellies, I pretty much let them eat. So they're picky and I just don't stress out about it. So I was like, sure, you can have your Advent chocolate before breakfast. That's fine. And yeah, we had to start the calendars a little bit before Advent because Advent is only like 3 weeks and 1 day, or 3 weeks and 1 day this year, I think, because it starts on Sunday. And then the fourth Sunday of Advent is going to be the day before Christmas. So just reminding everyone that we do have to go to Mass twice. And the Sunday night Mass doesn't count for both. I saw this little chart that everyone's probably seen going around by now, but it gives you like all the options for how you can get your 2 Masses in that weekend. So go check it out. But today we are going to talk about spiritual dryness. And we love this topic because it pretty much applies to anyone who is a Catholic that's trying to live their faith. And we thought it was a good time to talk about this during Advent because, contrary to what the culture might be telling us, Jesus isn't here yet. This is a time of preparation. And so a lot of the little mangers are empty right now in our churches. And we are waiting for that cuddly baby Jesus that we just want to pick up and snuggle with. And he's not there yet. We are in a season of preparation, making sure that our hearts are ready for when he comes on the 25th. And I thought that that was kind of a good parallel to the experience of spiritual dryness. So we know that God exists even when we can't see him. And that's kind of something that's similar to what we go through when we are having spiritual dryness or desolation. So this is a topic that the Catholic spiritual writers throughout history have addressed. Spiritual dryness is the experience that you have when you pray and you practice your faith and you frequent the sacraments, but you don't have the feeling of presence. So sometimes you're praying and scripture just comes alive for you and you totally feel God there with you, and you are getting to know the saints and you feel like they're your friends and you're learning so much and growing, and then all of a sudden that might stop, or it might gradually stop. Even if you keep practicing those acts of faith and practicing your faith, the feelings might go away. And I think that the immediate response that a lot of us have is, what did I do wrong? And what we want to talk about today is the fact that we all experience the spiritual dryness, and that it's not a sign that you did anything wrong. It's probably actually a sign that you're doing something wrong. So first, let's just kind of talk about our own personal experiences with spiritual dryness. Cassie, can you relate to this subject on a personal level?
Yeah, and actually this is something that I'm kind of feeling right now. And it's not the first time. I definitely kind of go through peaks and valleys, and it's just there will be times when I feel really enthusiastic about my faith and I can feel God working in my life and I can feel him there. Or, I'll feel maybe a certain saint or something that I'm just feeling particularly close to, and everything seems to be gelling and going well. And then there are times right now where it's just I feel nothing, and I feel I don't want to make that sound extreme, but that's what it's like. It's I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And I don't want to pray. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to do anything. I do. I do it anyways, but it just feels hollow, feels kind of empty. And it's uncomfortable and it's not pleasant. But I have to kind of make myself keep trucking along and, just in the hopes that it will kind of, right itself at some point.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that too. Like, I feel like, especially when I was a teenager, I went through a lot of growing in that relationship with God. And I think I read the Bible cover to cover like 2 or 3 times, and it just was alive to me. Like, I felt like I learned so much and got to know so many saints. And then there were just periods of isolation throughout. And I wasn't very consistent over the years with, like, when I wasn't feeling anything, being faithful to, I would still go to the sacraments and like follow the precepts of the church, but I wasn't doing a lot of like private devotion outside of that. And what I'm trying to learn now is the importance of pushing through when there is no feeling. And so I was talking to a priest in confession actually a few weeks ago, and I really want God to be the first priority for me. I'm like goal oriented, and I write out my goals every day, and I strive to meet them, but I'm having a really hard time like making God the first priority. Even though I write him as the first priority on my goals every day, I feel like that's not how it is in my heart. I feel like these other personal goals that I have really are taking priority in my heart. And he said, well, the fact that you want him to be the first priority, it says a lot. And he said, until your heart feels that, you have to keep doing the hard things even when you don't feel like it. And I was like, on the one hand, it's like, duh, like I've heard that my whole life. And on the other hand, it was exactly what I needed to hear. Someone to reinforce that you just have to keep going and do the hard work. I mean, it's like waking up at 5 a.m. and going to work out. So many of us do that, even when we don't feel like it. But it's so hard for some reason when you're going through that spiritual dryness to be motivated to do the same thing with like prayer and scripture. And even at some points in our lives, just going to the sacraments. I know that it can be really hard for people to just make sure they go to mass or try to get to confession when they have committed a mortal sin. So we just want to like share our solidarity with everyone who goes through that, and we want everyone to know like you're not alone, and it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong if you go through that dryness.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you pointed that out, because that was something you said right before we started, and you can maybe explain that a little bit. But I'd never heard it phrased like that. To me, I always felt like, well, if I don't feel God working in my life, it means that I'm doing something wrong. I'm not doing enough. That there is a problem with me.
Yeah.
So that you had just said that, this is a sign of it, you're doing something right. So what did you mean by that?
Well, there is a video I'm going to share that will summarize this way better than I can. So all of the church, like many church commentators and saints have commented on this spiritual dryness topic over the centuries. But Father Mike Schmitz actually did a video on this like 2 days ago with Ascension Presents. And this was after Cassie and I had decided to tackle this topic today. And so it felt really providential, because I was like, oh, here's a video that's going to be able to explain it so much better than we can. But he talks about, I think St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross, who were actually friends, they're Carmelite saints from like the 15 or 1600s. They are kind of known for explaining spiritual dryness. They kind of coined the term dark night of the soul, or at least popularized it in the church. And they, I think it's St. Teresa of Avila, who breaks up the spiritual life into kind of like 3 phases. So the purgative, illuminative, and unitive way. And in the purgative way, that's kind of the I guess you would say like the earlier stages of your faith where you're deeply on fire for God, you're growing and you have that deep relationship with him, he will take away the sense of his presence for a time, but then it will come back and you'll get this boost to continue going and growing. But when you move into the illuminative way, it's kind of that opportunity to mature and to grow in your relationship with God on a deeper level. And Father Mike explains this so beautifully. He says when you go through these dark nights of the soul, there's the dark night of the senses and a dark night of the soul. The dark night of the senses is when you lose all feeling and you feel complete desolation, but you still know in your heart that God does exist and that you are working toward something better. The dark night of the soul is when you're not even sure if God exists, but you choose in spite of that to continue to love him, even though you're not even sure if he's real or if heaven is your ultimate destination. You just keep going. And it's this like profound leap that you have to make. And when you're going through these dark nights, he says, you're preparing your heart to be the kind of heart that can live in heaven. So God is inviting you in the absence of any what's in it for me, any like sensible reward, to continue to love him. And so you have the opportunity to grow and to mature by loving him when you feel nothing. And if you think about it, and which I'm sure many people have, if we didn't have the opportunity to do that, we really couldn't deepen our spiritual lives. So we need to be able to have the opportunity to love him when we feel nothing. I'm going to post this video that Father Mike made because it's just so good. And I'm going to post some links to like reading recommendations. You and I had talked about a few saints, especially Mother Teresa, who like have really profound, beautiful stories of their own personal desolation. And they can just be such a source of encouragement because, you know, when you read this great saint who went through this and came out on the other side like this hero who was canonized, then there must be something that's not so bad about the spiritual dryness that we experience.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of hope for yourself.
Yes.
And, you know, one thing that you kind of mentioned the sacrament, and that's something that I think can especially be important, especially something like confession, at least for me personally. And, you know, your mileage may vary, but I feel like I can tell a difference when I go too long without going to confession. You know, it's not that you necessarily have to go like every single week, but it's been a couple of months for me, and I can always tell when it's been too long, because it's like the sin just starts like eating away at me, you know, and I really feel like that's part of my issue, at least right now. You know, I have a newborn. She's right next to me. That's why I keep looking over there. So I went right after I had her, but I haven't had the chance since then. And it makes me feel like, you know, I'm not worthy, you know, like I don't deserve, like I'm sitting there praying. I want to say that Father Mike Schmitz had a video about this as well. But, you know, it's like I'm sitting there praying and it's like, well, why would God want to listen to me? You know, I suck. You know, so it's like there's that in the back of my head, and I can always, it's worse when I go too long without going and, you know, having my sins, you know, forgiven. So that's something, I mean, hopefully this weekend I'm going to be able to go, and that could be something to not neglect, to make sure, you know, all of the sacraments really, but especially reconciliation, I think, can give us a lot of the graces we need when we're going through something like this.
Yeah. And not to be dramatic, but when you hear that voice in your head that says you suck, and we all hear that that's literally Satan that is saying you suck, like you're not worthy. And when I feel like when we go to confession and the sacraments, we're telling him to go to hell, and it breaks his hold. You know, even if our sin isn't a mortal sin that's like literally separated us from God, it can be just this buildup of our flaws, and they really eat at us. And then the devil takes advantage of our shame, which is a legitimate feeling that we have when we've done something wrong, and he exploits it. And then we have to go to confession. I know, like, I love the term, everyone has different mileage, because the precept obviously of the church is that you have to go once a year if you have mortal sin on your soul. That's like, the precepts are described as like the church holding on to you by a thread. So that's like the bare minimum. But then like the practice that's recommended for just maintenance is like anywhere from every week to once a month is like a really good recommendation. For me, it's every 2 weeks. In college, there were times I tried to go every week. It's just not feasible anymore with the confession schedule that our particular church has. But every 2 weeks, and it's a gargantuan effort to get there every 2 weeks, and I don't always do it. But that's like where my happy place is, I guess you would say, where like I feel like I don't get too bogged down as long as I'm getting things off my chest and like getting that fresh start every 2 weeks.
See, I was not raised going to confession on a regular basis. I mean, that was what I was told. Okay, we need to go once a year. And so that's what I did. And I remember we had this exchange student, and I wish I could remember where he was from. He was from South America, and in high school, he was this very devout Catholic. And he came to Mass with us once, and he didn't go up for the Eucharist. And I asked him why. And he goes, well, because I haven't gone to confession this week. And I'm like, you go every week? And he goes, yes, otherwise I don't take the Eucharist. And I remember at the time thinking like, what? That's so strange. And then now as an adult, it's like, well, he had it pretty right. And so it's like, I try to make this effort to go more often because again, I wasn't raised going on a regular basis. So now I try to go once a month, which I feel like should be attainable, but it's so hard.
Yeah.
Especially because most parishes have these teensy little windows where it's like 30 minutes on one Saturday. And it's so hard. It's so hard to get there. Yeah. I wish it was more available.
Me too. One of my favorite saints is Saint John Vianney. He's like my guy. I didn't talk about him on our saint day because we were talking about women saints, but Saint John Vianney and John Paul II are my like guy saints that I love. And he was in the confessional like some absurd number of hours every day. I think at like 18 hours a day. Like, and I feel like I know priests are too busy to do that, but when you find those churches that do have confession every day, or their priest spends an inordinate amount of time in the confessional, it's a testament to how important it is. Like, if you think about a parish that has like 8,000 families, if you're going on even a semi-regular basis, the windows that most churches have open of a half hour or 1 hour, like it wouldn't accommodate everybody. And so I kind of wish that there were more priests just so that you could have someone in the confessional, like a couple hours a day, just to like send that message. Because I feel like if it were there and it were available and staggered times throughout the week, it would send the parish that message that this is an important sacrament, and it makes everything else in your life better. Like, it makes it easier to go to the Eucharist. It makes it easier to pray. It makes it easier to like know yourself. And I feel like it makes your relationships with other people better, and it just improves everything. It's like counseling, psychology, all in one place, and it's free. So I do wish on this, I feel like this is a good sacraments to talk about when you're talking about spiritual dryness, because it's just such a renewing source for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I definitely agree about if it were more available, more people would go. It's and I know like what you said, like priests are so busy, and there's a shortage of priests in the United States. I mean, to an extent, you can maybe argue that it can't be helped, but then you could also argue that that should be more of their priority.
Yeah.
So, But yeah, that's my goal, for how to kind of combat this right now. So I'm hoping when, I get a chance to go to confession, it will help, give me a little bit of that sense of renewal, like what you said, because this is Advent and it's, like you said, time of preparation. And, I don't want to go into it feeling nothing.
Yes.
Maybe it can't be helped, only time will tell. But I just am really hoping that there will be some way to kind of work past this. And then in the meantime, what do you do when you go through these kinds of spiritual dry spells? How do you get through them?
What I'm trying to do now, and like I said, haven't been as good about this in the past, but I'm just trying to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not trying to make any heroic effort to change anything in my prayer life or my sacramental life. When the period of dryness starts, I just want to keep going to the sacraments, not to let those kind of fall off. Like, I don't know how everyone else is, but like if I'm eating healthy, and then I have a cookie and then pizza and then pasta, and like it kind of spirals out of control and I totally fall off the wagon. Like that is how I've been in the past with spiritual dryness. Like suddenly the spiritual life gets really hard and it doesn't feel good anymore and I just don't want to do it. And so what I'm just trying to do now is just be consistent and it gives me that opportunity to, like, when I do pray, it is a greater act of love because I'm not getting anything out of it. I am, but I can't feel it at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it really, I'm trying to look at it as this opportunity to mature and like keep that. I just love that one-liner from Father Mark that I don't remember verbatim, but he did say, like, you're making your heart into a heart that can live in heaven. And so I think for me, just maybe being goal oriented or whatever, I can look at that and say, okay, this experience that's unpleasant, like working out and eating healthy, it does have a purpose. I'm making my heart into a heart that can live in heaven. And so that's kind of the objective for me. Do you have any advice?
Go to make sure you're getting your sacraments and just keep trying. That's all that's all I know to do, and your example of falling off the wagon, that's what it feels like for me right now. And maybe that's why I'm feeling this way, because I feel like I have fallen off the wagon in the past month. And it's not anything major. It's not that anything has happened. It's just, that's how it feels. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying, one of the saints you mentioned, Saint Jane Frances de Chantal, and she mentioned, you can fall, 50 times a day and it's okay as long as you just get back up. And so that's pretty much all I'm trying to do right now, is to just get back up. Yeah. That's like all I'm trying to do, is to just put one foot in front of the other and just keep going, even though it feels like a lot more effort than, it does other times, but you just got to keep trying.
One thing I'll throw out as kind of a sidebar is, and Father Mike makes this point in his video, you want to make sure that when you're experiencing spiritual dryness, you're not confusing depression with spiritual dryness. So spiritual dryness will only affect your spiritual life. It's not like this shadow has been cast over every part of your life. So if you're feeling the symptoms of depression, that's a different experience, and you don't want to conflate the two, because if it is depression, then you need to take like a different course of action. If it's spiritual dryness, just keep doing what you're doing. It will end eventually, and your soul will be so much more mature and strengthened for it. If it's depression, like, you might need a medication or counseling or to see the doctor. You know what I mean? So we just want to like throw that out there, because so many women, especially during the holidays, are going to experience depression. And we don't want someone to watch this and be like, oh, well, these girls said that it was fine, I just got to keep going. No. Like, if it's
no. If you're like, I'm glad you said that too. And if you're like not wanting to do your regular activities, like you just can't summon up the energy to take a shower, and just want to stay in bed all day and don't want to talk to people, go see a doctor. Yeah. And I'm not saying that, flippantly. I actually mean it. Like, go see a doctor. If that's not And we're not going to be the people that are saying, you know, oh, well, you know, just give it time. You can snap out of it, or go spend some time outside. No, depression is an actual medical condition, you know, and it, you know, should be treated as such. And, you know, so, and that's definitely not how I'm feeling. No, for me, it's just like a spiritual dry spell right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to post like different like books. And another thing I wanted to mention really quick is Mother Angelica has a mini book, which I will also link to. And it's called, I forgot to write it down. Oh no, Dawn on the Mountain. Mother Angelica was amazing. I used to be a member of her religious community. I have a really soft spot for her in my heart, as so many others do. She has a mini book, which is like maybe 10 or 12 pages or something, where she actually talks about dryness in prayer. And so it's her advice on how to get through it. And it's phenomenal. So there's an excerpt I'm going to post. And then if you can get like the full little mini book, it's totally worth the read. So if anyone else has suggestions for resources, or just wants to share their experience or commiserate with somebody else who's going through this, we would love to hear what you think in the comments. We would love for you to share our video and like our page. And we try to make a video about once a week to talk about anything that affects the life of a Catholic woman living in the real world. So if you have a suggestion for a topic that you would like us to talk about, please feel free to leave that as well. Any last thoughts, Cassie? Hello, baby.
Yeah, say hi. This is Felicity. She's being a little fussy, so she had to come and join us.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, have a great start to your Advent on Sunday, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.